The first time my dad called me a real man of the house. I was 22 and sending him half my paycheck. I didn't say anything at the time. I was just grateful he acknowledged me at all. My whole life, I'd been the good kid, the quiet one, the helper, the one who didn't cause trouble. My younger brother, Brandon, was the other kind. Loud, impulsive, always with some next big thing he was chasing. Failed businesses, semester-long sabbaticals, expensive hobbies. He was a walking trust fund baby, minus the trust, minus the fund. But if you asked my parents, he was just finding himself. Me? I had already found myself. In spreadsheets, early wake-ups, and debt. So when my dad called and said he'd been laid off, massive corporate downsizing, he said, I didn't hesitate. He didn't ask for money outright. Just said the mortgage was due in 2 weeks and they were figuring it out. I offered. That's the part that still haunts me. I'll help, I said. Are you sure? He asked, not even pretending to resist. It's just temporary, my mom added. Once he's back on his feet. They said that in March. By December, I had wired over $18,000. $2,000 a month. Automatically. Quietly. No holidays off, no. Thanks. Just silence in return. Except for one moment, my dad sent a thumbs up emoji once. I remember because it came while I was eating instant noodles in my one-bedroom apartment, where the heating barely worked. And I didn't even regret it. Not then. Because I believed them. They told me they were scraping by. That they had downsized everything. My mom even cried on the phone once, saying she was so ashamed that I had to step in. I told her not to be. I said it was the least I could do after everything they'd done for me growing up, which, in hindsight, is hilariously ironic. Then came the post. I hadn't spoken to Brandon in months. He'd gone abroad for self-reflection. After a breakup, which in his case meant backpacking around Europe and Australia, funded by whoever's bank account wasn't locked. And then, out of nowhere, I saw it. A photo on Instagram. Brandon on a yacht. Holding champagne. The caption? S/O to the best parents ever for making this year possible. 2 hearts #blessed #year of me #family first. At first, I thought it was fake. A joke. Or maybe he was just high on influencer fumes and pretending. But no. There were photos. Lots of them. Barcelona. Florence. Sydney. A helicopter ride in New Zealand. All stamped with paid for by mom and dad, clinking glasses. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I checked my bank app. The last $2,000 transfer had gone through the day before. Right on time. Something snapped in me. It wasn't the money. It wasn't even the betrayal. It was the lie. The fact that they let me believe they were drowning, while they were busy funding Brandon's gap year on steroids. They let me feel guilty for living in a crummy apartment. For not visiting on the holidays. For not being more involved. They had turned me into an ATM. And I thanked them for it. But the story doesn't end there. Because when I stopped paying, cold turkey, no warning, they didn't even notice at first. Not until the foreclosure notice arrived. And by then, it was too late. 3 weeks. That's how long I stopped paying before they noticed. 3 entire weeks of blissful silence. No calls, no texts, just the distant hum of my parents living off the echoes of my generosity. I imagine them checking their bank app, seeing the $0 deposit, and blaming Chase Bank before realizing the ATM had finally grown a spine. And then came the accident. Not a car crash. A text from my mom meant for Brandon. A grainy photo of an envelope, clearly scanned in a panic. At the top, in all caps and crimson ink, were the words. Final notice, intent to foreclose. Below it, the message. Don't tell Ethan. Not yet. He'll freak out. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my cup noodles. Don't tell Ethan. The guy footing the bill. The one living like a monk while they threw cash at Brandon's healing journey, across 4 continents. That text? It was my Joker origin story. I didn't reply. Not right away. I just let the silence settle. 3 days later, my mom texted again. Hey, sweetie. Weird thing, but did your bank maybe change something? The mortgage didn't go through this month. Just a glitch, right? Smiling face with smiling eyes, let me know. That emoji sent me into another rage-laced spiral. That cheerful little yellow face, like this was some sitcom misunderstanding. The audacity to use a smiley when I'd been bleeding cash into their lives like a human for drip. I finally texted back. I figured you'd use Brandon's yacht budget for it. Instant read receipt. And then nothing. Just that floating, ominous silence that every adult child knows means a storm is brewing on the parent hotline. An hour later, my phone rang. Dad. I didn't pick up. He didn't leave a voicemail. Then came the second call. Same number. This time, I answered, out of morbid curiosity more than anything. My mother's voice came through, syrupy and shaky. Ethan? Honey? I didn't say anything. We noticed the mortgage didn't go through, she said, trying to sound casual but coming off like someone whose reality had just sprung a leak. Was it intentional? What do you think? I asked deadpan. There was a pause. Then she did the worst possible thing. She played dumb. Well, your father's been trying to call. I saw Brandon's post. I interrupted. The yacht, the champagne, the blessed caption like he was the second coming of Elon Musk. Paid for by you. You know, the people who told me you were broke. Silence. Then the whimper. Ethan, it's not like that. Isn't it? I snapped. Because I distinctly remember you crying to me about overdue bills while Brandon was flying business class to meditate in Thailand. That trip was important, she said softly, defensively. He was going through a lot. His breakup. I was going through a lot. I snapped back. But I didn't get a gap year to find myself. I got a second job and a windowless apartment. He needed time, she insisted. You've always been so independent. There it was. The favorite's alibi. You're stronger. You'll survive. So it's okay to drain you dry. I laughed, and it wasn't a nice laugh. You told me Dad lost his job. He did. I let that hang. And yet somehow, you still had thousands to spend on Brandon's sofa boat parties while I was paying your mortgage. She started to cry. Not the real kind. The kind I remembered from childhood. Loud enough to derail the conversation, soft enough to sound believable to outsiders. You don't understand how hard it's been for us. She sniffled. We thought we were doing the right thing. Your brother, he needed help. Then he can help you now, I said coldly. Because I'm out. Ethan, she whispered, panic slipping in. Please. Don't do this. We'll lose the house. You already did, I said. You just didn't know it yet. Then I hung up. And it was the easiest thing I've ever done. Brandon called me at 2:14 a.m. Because apparently, respecting time zones is beneath people who live in delusion. I saw his name flash across my screen, a contact I hadn't interacted with in months, and considered letting it go to voicemail. But then I remembered, this was the guy I accidentally subsidized for nearly a year. I figured I'd earned the right to hear what a grown man on a yacht had to say at 2 in the morning. Bro, he said immediately. What the actual hell? No hello. No lead up. Just vibes and entitlement. Hi to you too, I said, propping my pillow behind me and settling in like I was watching a reality show. Mom said you stopped paying the mortgage, he said, all wounded outrage, like I'd cancelled Christmas. What the hell is wrong with you? What's wrong with me? I repeated slowly, as if the words had been spoken in Morse code. Dude, that house is our legacy. It's where we grew up. You grew up there, I said. You also moved out at 19, came back at 22 after failing 3 classes, then left again to chase a content creator dream in Mykonos. What part of that was legacy building? I was finding myself. he said, in the same tone someone might use to explain a pilgrimage. You wouldn't understand. You're right, I said. I wouldn't. I was too busy working double shifts so the house you weren't in didn't get taken by the bank. There was a beat of silence. Then he sighed, the kind of sigh that implied he'd be patient with me, despite my obvious small-mindedness. Look, he said, I get it. You're mad. But this doesn't help anyone. Mom's crying, Dad's spiraling, and the bank's getting aggressive. Can't we just fix this? Oh, you want to fix this? I asked. With what? Your brand deals? You gonna pay the mortgage with exposure? He hesitated. And that's when I knew he actually was. I mean, that's kinda what I wanted to talk to you about, he said. I've got a pitch. A pitch. Of course he did. You remember that wellness collab I teased on my story? The digital detox tea brand? I remember it made you look like you were cosplaying as a monk in Gucci slides. Whatever, he said. They loved it. They want more. Mental health, family resilience, generational healing, all that stuff. I waited. So here's the idea, he continued. We spin this whole situation, the house drama, you cutting us off, into a content arc. Like Black Sheep saves the family but walks away anyway. Tragic hero stuff. You'll be huge. I tag you. You get followers. We launch a podcast. Wait, I said, blinking into the dark. You want to turn me cutting off our toxic family into a personal brand for you? Us, he corrected. We'd co-brand. The audience loves redemption arcs. I stared at the ceiling. You're actually serious, I said, stunned. Ethan, this is what you don't get. People love authenticity. Pain sells. If we make this public, lean into the betrayal. Brandon, I cut in. You stole my money. That's not fair. I didn't steal anything. Mom and Dad just redirected resources. They lied to me about being broke. I snapped. So I'd keep paying the bills while you were doing yoga in Santorini. That's not a resource reallocation. That's fraud, with a filter. He sighed again. God, you're so negative. This is why your engagement sucks. You have no vision. Oh, I've got vision, I said. I'm picturing your face when that foreclosure notice lands on your feed instead of your yacht selfies. Silence. Then the mask slipped. You're just bitter, he said. You've always hated that people liked me more. Liked you more? I repeated. Brandon, they funded your midlife crisis at 25. You've never earned $1 without someone else handing it to you. And the one time I stopped handing it over? You call me the villain? He didn't respond. So I finished it for him. You want a redemption arc? Earn it. Pay the mortgage. Sell your camera drone. Cancel a few flights. You know, adult stuff. And before he could pivot, charm, or bro me one more time, I ended the call. Blocked his number. Then I sat there for a while, staring into the dark, thinking about how surreal it is to realize your entire family sees your generosity as a weakness. I used to believe being the reliable one would make them love me more. Turns out, it just made me easier to exploit. But not anymore. Because the next act wasn't about saving the house. It was about saving myself, and making damn sure they knew it. They say revenge is best served cold. I say it's best served by a real estate agent who shows up with foreclosure paperwork and 3 confused neighbors watching from their porches. Because that's exactly what happened 2 weeks later. But I'm getting ahead of myself. After I blocked Brandon, I stayed quiet. No dramatic confrontation, no text blasts. I let them stew in their silence. Let them feel the way I had felt for years, unimportant. Easy to overlook. Only valuable when useful. In the meantime, I did my own digging. It turns out, I wasn't even the first person my parents had borrowed from. My aunt, Dad's sister, had loaned them $5,000 the year before for roof repairs that mysteriously never happened. My cousin said the same. My parents had become serial financial vampires. Every relative was a buffet line. But the real kicker? My grandfather, the man who'd worked his whole life to buy that house, had left behind a trust specifically earmarked for emergency mortgage relief. My parents never touched it. Why? Because they said I was handling it now. I found this out from my aunt, who thought I already knew. When I told her what really happened, she got quiet. And then she asked, "What are you going to do?" And for once, I had an answer. It started with an email. I wrote it like a press release. Neutral tone, bullet points, no swearing, just facts. For the last 11 months, I had been paying my parents' $2,000 mortgage under the impression that my father had lost his job. During that time, my younger brother Brandon was traveling the world on their dime. They used the money I gave them to fund his year of self-discovery. I had since cut them off. They were now in foreclosure. And no, I would not be bailing them out again. I BCC'd it to every single person in our extended family group chat. Then I attached screenshots, the Instagram yacht posts, the bank transactions, the mortgage notices, even my mom's accidental "Don't tell Ethan" message. I didn't include commentary. I didn't need to. Brandon had always said he loved a transparent digital footprint. Well, here it was. The fallout was immediate. My cousin texted me. "Bro. What the hell?" My aunt called me twice. Then texted, "Proud of you. Long overdue." Even my grandmother, who still uses a flip phone and ends every sentence with "Love, Nana," somehow found out and sent me a handwritten letter that just said, "It's about time someone told the truth." But my favorite reaction came from Brandon. He posted a 3-minute video to his Instagram story. Black and white filter. Somber music. Him staring into the distance on a rooftop. Captioned, "Some people only support you when you're quiet and convenient. But real growth? Real growth is choosing peace when others choose drama." It was so delusional I saved it as a screensaver for motivation. But that wasn't the end. Because the universe, or karma, decided to drop a cherry on top of this flaming trash Sunday. 3 days later, a neighbor filmed the TikTok of my parents' house getting a foreclosure sticker plastered on the front door. You could hear them yelling in the background. You could see my dad trying to argue with the bank rep, waving a manila folder like a sword made of poor decisions. The video? It went viral. Because Brandon's face was in it. Because apparently, he was trying to film a travel vlog in front of the house when the bank guy showed up. Caption. Not the #year of me ending like this loudly crying face skull. 500,000 likes in 12 hours. And that's when Brandon called me, again. This time, from a different number. I answered. "You think this is funny?" He snapped, no preamble. "A little," I said. "Actually, a lot. You ruined my reputation." "No, you did that," I said calmly. "I just added a timestamp. You're enjoying this." I thought for a second. Then I said, "No, Brandon. I'm freeing myself from it. There's a difference." And I meant it. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the family's safety net. I was the one cutting the cords. After the foreclosure video hit TikTok, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree dipped in gasoline. People I hadn't spoken to since high school suddenly cared about how I was doing. DMs from old friends rolled in, all variations of, "Hey man, saw the house thing, wild. You good?" But the most interesting messages came from my parents. First was a group text, just me, Mom, and Dad. A digital hostage situation. "Dad, we need to talk. This has gotten out of control." "Mom, this isn't who we are, Ethan. You know that." "Dad, you've made your point. Now let's fix this as a family." It was funny, the word family had been a shield for so long, they still thought saying it meant something. I didn't respond. So they tried again, individually this time. Mom sent me a wall of text at 2 a.m., probably after watching the TikTok comments spiral. "Ethan, we're sorry. Things got messy. We made mistakes, but we're still your parents. We miss you. We love you. Can't we start over? Start over? Like this was a rom-com and not financial manipulation wrapped in Christmas sweaters. I left it on read. 3 hours later, Dad sent his version. Less emotional, more managerial. Let's be rational. You aired private matters publicly. That doesn't help anyone. Be the bigger person. We can still work this out. Translation. You embarrassed us. Please undo it quietly. Still, I didn't reply. Because here's the thing. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted relief. Silence. Distance. Boundaries. But Brandon? He had other plans. A week after the video, I got a Venmo request. From Brandon. $1,200. Note. Flight home. Need to regroup. T-checks bro. I stared at it for a solid minute. Then I screen capped it, declined the request, and posted it to my private story with just one caption. Their audacity has no off switch. The reactions came flooding in. Dozens of laughing emojis. A few. Is this real? DMs. Even one. Burn the whole family tree. And I'll admit, it felt good. Not petty. Not cruel. Just honest. For the first time, the truth was louder than their lies. And they couldn't stand it. Because people like them don't apologize when they're wrong. They apologize when they're cornered. It came on a Sunday morning like a cursed newsletter. Subject line. Let's reconnect. Family brunch? Sent by my mother. CC'd to me, Brandon, my dad, and just for spice, Aunt Cheryl, who once told me anxiety was just poor people being dramatic. The email was written like an Instagram caption. We've all been hurting. This isn't what Grandpa would have wanted. Let's meet next Sunday. No drama. No blame. Just love. Red heart. Just love. As if love came with direct deposit and an overdraft fee. I almost deleted it on the spot. But something about it stuck. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was the no blame line, ironic, considering how quickly they blamed me for telling the truth. I didn't reply. I just marked my calendar. They reserved a table at a bland brunch chain with fake plants and real mimosas. I arrived 5 minutes late on purpose. The whole table turned when I walked in. Mom looked like she was bracing for a windstorm. Dad nodded like I was a plumber he'd hired and immediately regretted. Brandon raised his mimosa in a slow, smug salute. Ethan, Mom said, standing halfway. You came. I was curious, I replied. Couldn't miss the emotional Yelp review. The waiter came. I ordered black coffee. Everyone else already had food. Apparently they hadn't waited to start. Fitting. The first 20 minutes were a masterclass in fake normal. They talked about neutral things. My aunt's sore hip, my dad's new, consulting, job that sounded like glorified unemployment, Brandon's latest scheme involving motivational videos and a GoPro. I didn't say much. Just nodded. Stirred my coffee. Watched the dysfunction try to hold itself together with masking tape and maple syrup. Eventually my mom cleared her throat. This, she said, waving a hand around the table. This is nice. I miss this. You mean when I used to pay your bills quietly and pretend everything was fine? I asked. Her smile faltered. We know mistakes were made, she said. But at the end of the day, we're still a family. I reached into my coat pocket. Pulled out an envelope. Plain white. No drama. I slid it across the table toward my father. He picked it up like it might bite him. What's this? He asked. An invoice, I said. 11 months. $2,000 a month. Mortgage support. Itemized. No late fees, no interest. Consider it a discount. You're joking. Brandon scoffed. I turned to him. Oh, you mean like that $1,200 Venmo request you sent me? With the folded hands red heart note? Because that was hilarious. Ethan, my mom said sharply, this isn't the place. It's the exact place. I said, you wanted no drama? Cool. Here's closure. In paper form. Dad let out a long sigh. We don't have that kind of money. You had enough to send Brandon around the world. I said, you just didn't think the guy paying your mortgage might eventually ask for accountability. We thought you were fine. Mom said quietly. You've always been strong. There it was. The ultimate gaslight. You're strong, so we let you suffer silently. You're quiet, so we forgot you existed. You're responsible, so we treated you like a safety net we didn't even thank. Do you hear yourselves? I asked. You don't miss me. You miss what I gave you. Stability. Quiet guilt. Easy money. That's not fair. My dad said. You're right. I replied. Fair would have been splitting everything evenly. Fair would have been telling me the truth. Fair would have been not calling me selfish when I stopped bailing out your lies. Brandon shifted uncomfortably. For once, he had nothing smug to say. I finished the last sip of coffee. Cold now. Bitter. Fitting. I'm not angry, I said. I'm just done. I stood up. Dropped a 20 on the table. Looked at all three of them. Really looked. And I saw what they never thought I'd see, not parents. Not family. Just people. People who use love as a transaction. You don't want forgiveness, I said. You want amnesia. Sorry, I'm not offering that. I turned and walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. I thought there'd be more after the brunch. Screaming. Phone calls. Maybe a Facebook post from my mother dripping in vague guilt-bait like, some people don't value family anymore. But all I got was silence. I didn't hear from them the next day. Or the one after that. The family group chat, once a hive of shared recipes, fake concern, and birthday reminders for people I barely knew, went eerily quiet. I wasn't removed from it. I was just frozen out. Like they were all waiting to see what I'd do next. And I did exactly what I wanted. Nothing. For the first time in years, my days weren't built around second-guessing, double-checking my bank app, or swallowing guilt like cough syrup. I went to work. I hit the gym. I rewatched my favorite trash TV without wondering if a Venmo request would crash through the screen mid-episode. I started sleeping deeper. Eating slower. Laughing harder. It was like I'd finally stopped holding my breath. About a week later, my aunt called me. Not the dramatic one. Not the one who still sends chain emails. The one who always kind of knew what was going on but never said anything. I just wanted to say. She began awkwardly. I saw the video. The brunch story's been making the rounds. Of course it has, I said, sipping my coffee. I think you were brave, she said. And probably right. They used you. I waited for the but. It never came. Instead, she added, Brandon's been living with them. Again. Says it's temporary. Of course he had. Nothing says rock bottom like crashing on your parents' couch after blowing through yacht money. Mom and Dad still think you'll come around. She continued gently. But I don't think they understand you're not angry anymore. I'm not, I said. I'm just uninterested. 3 weeks after that call, I got a letter. Actual paper. Stamped envelope. My mom's handwriting on the front. I turned it over in my hands for a full minute before opening it. It was 3 paragraphs long. No apology. No real acknowledgement. Just phrases like, we didn't handle things well, and, it was never our intention to hurt you. And the classic closer. We hope, in time, you'll come back home. I folded it back into the envelope and dropped it in the recycling bin. There was no home to return to. Just a structure where I used to be useful. The next day, I did something simple but powerful. I bought a second dining chair. I'd been living alone for 3 years with just one. It felt symbolic. Like a declaration to the universe. Someone else belongs here, eventually. And not someone who demands. Not someone who drains. Someone who shows up without needing a receipt. That night I invited a friend over, Melissa, from work. The kind of person who never asked questions I wasn't ready to answer. We ate takeout at the table. 2 chairs. No performance. No guilt. She asked if I was okay now. I told her the truth. I'm not healed, I said. But for the first time, I'm not hurting. And that felt like peace. 6 months later, I saw them. Not in person. In a tagged photo on Facebook. Someone's backyard barbecue. A folding table. My mom in sunglasses, holding a paper plate. My dad beside her, staring into the distance. Brandon leaning against a cooler like he'd earned the right to look tired. They looked normal. As if nothing had happened. No yacht. No foreclosure. No betrayal. Just burgers and bottled soda and the illusion of a family that still functioned. I stared at the photo for longer than I want to admit. Not because I missed them. Because I didn't. I'd built something different by then. I had new routines. New people. A new version of my life that didn't center around emotional clean-up duty. I'd learned to say no without flinching, and to receive things without guilt. I started dating again. Real dates. Not just grab a drink and trauma dump evenings, but conversations where no one expected me to carry the weight of 3 adults' bad decisions. One night, I told someone the whole story. Not all at once. Just the outline. And she didn't flinch. She didn't say, "But they're still your parents." She said, "They're lucky you lasted that long." That was the moment I realized I hadn't just cut them off. I'd freed myself. They did try one more time. A voicemail from my dad. "Your mother's not well. She's been asking for you." Not terminal. Not urgent. Just vague enough to plant guilt like a seed and hope it sprouted. But I didn't call back. Instead, I wrote a letter. I kept it short. "You asked me to be the bigger person. I was for years. You asked me to sacrifice. I did, more than you'll ever admit. What I'm asking now is simple. Leave me in peace. I'm not angry. I'm just finished. Ethan." I didn't include a return address. Didn't sign it. Love. Didn't say, "See you soon." I mailed it. And that was that. The dining chair across from mine still sits empty sometimes. Other times, it's filled with someone who actually asks how I am. Not what I can do. Not what I can give. Just me. And I think that's what healing really is. Not forgetting. But building something better in the space they used to occupy. And never leaving the door open behind you.